Guys, welcome to the first ever interview on the Koi Contrarian here. Today, I'm super excited to talk to comedian artist out of Nashville, Tennessee. His name is Brett Brock. Let me bring him on. Brett.
Hey.
All right, we got you. We can hear you just loud and clear. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it for being the first guest on the show here. You're a busy dude, man. You're really going at it. So you've been going at I obviously got connected with you on Twitter a number of years back. Connected with you. You have a pretty good Instagram post with all your drawings, and now you're going hard at Twitch.
Yeah, it's I've I try to keep Instagram kind of business casual. If a buddy of mine, pokes me, has some fun with me, then I'll poke back. But typically, Instagram's business casual. Twitter's just where I have fun and goof off. And Twitch is something new. It's primarily a gamers hangout and venue for those folks.
Right.
And I'm not the first one to sit on there and do some artsy fartsy stuff. But that's what I've been doing for the past month or so, and it seems to be all right. It seems to be going well. So I'm certainly enjoying it. It's a lot of fun.
And you've been at it hard for this. I was going to say cancer research, but that's not right. It's like a fundraiser for another comedian, Andy Andrist.
Yes, Andy got diagnosed with cancer. Bile duct. We're going to have to go in and take out that, and part of his not only his gallbladder, bile duct, and pancreas. And while they're under the hood, then they'll be able to see what else they need to remove. And so a couple of Friday nights ago, I stayed up 24 hours straight live on Twitch, and I did 24 sketches in 24 hours, and then turned around and put every one of them on eBay, and 100% of the proceeds of those sketches at auction will go 100% to Andy Andrist. And, as I've told everybody, it's, when it comes to cancer and insurance and medical bills, we're not going to put a dent in what, they charge them. But at least if I could give enough to keep gas in their car, the utility bills on, put groceries on the table, that's something, that, alleviates a little stress.
And who better to do that for than Andy Andrist? I mean, the guy who's done so much for the world here. I'm kidding. I've seen Andy live. I went and saw Doug perform in Duluth, Minnesota a number of years back. Yeah. Andy obviously opened for him. If anybody isn't familiar with Doug Stanhope, Andy Andrist, and a number of other comedians that he tends to tour with over the past few years, they like to go at it pretty hard with not giving a shit about what they're making jokes about. And I don't think there's anybody better in that collection outside of Doug than Andy going hard with the comedy.
It's probably not for the faint of heart, but I love them to death. It's my kind of comedy, and the darker they go, the better. And the way Doug, forms his jokes and has for many years now. He's like a defense attorney. You don't know exactly where he's going. But he'll have this whole premise and setup, and it may be a 4-minute bit, and then his closer just hooks you, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I do kind of think about that. I do like that. Yeah." You can.
Is Andy considered part of the Unbookables? I've always been kind of unclear on what who exactly are the Unbookables.
It started out with I think James Inman, and Jeff Pearson was the director, who's passed. He passed away last year, but it was Inman, Sean Rouse, Andy Andrist. I think those are the primary guys. And then Christine Levine, Brett Erickson, Brennan Walsh. I even did the cover for it. It's on Amazon and available for rent. Norm Wilkerson, who played Satan. He comes out on stage dressed as the devil. And Travis Lipsky. Seems like I'm missing somebody, but
that's a lot of people to keep track of, though, because you're almost at a dozen people, and that's quite a collection of comedians that they did a tour, right?
Yes, they did a tour, and Jeff Pearson and those guys, they filmed the whole thing, and that huge number of people weren't on the tour simultaneously. Like they got to Peoria with Andy and Sean and Lipsky and Inman, and then they picked up Christine Levine and then picked up Brett Erickson. Oh, Brett Erickson! I forgot Brett Erickson.
No, you mentioned him.
Oh, did I? Okay.
Yeah,
but they picked up Erickson, who was in Peoria at that time, and then people would have to peel off to go to other gigs and get jobs, and then they picked up Wash along the way, and so it wasn't that many people the whole time. It was just people coming and going.
Such a collection too. I mean, and another person that just recently passed, Sean Rouse. It's been a couple of years now.
Yeah,
I had the pleasure to see him when I was still living in Texas. He performed at Cap City in Austin. He was the feature for Josh Blue, which was kind of perfect because you had two people with muscle problems, let's just say, right? Because Josh Blue has cerebral palsy. Sean, he had like muscular dystrophy. Is that what he had?
Something that sounds right.
And yeah, and so at the time I had no idea who Sean was, even though I was a big Stanhope fan. Yeah. It was before I even knew about Unbookables. And anyway, so I had gone to the show with a buddy of mine, and who I had done some open mics with and stuff down in Austin. And we're just kind of sitting at the bar before the show, just kind of talking about comedians that we like and stuff like that. And I had no idea that Sean was sitting right next to me, and he's having a drink, right? And
watching he bites.
Yeah, right. And we're saying all kinds of stuff, and I'm bashing this comic and I'm praising this other one, and I have no idea, remember what I said at all. And then after the show, we get done and we go back to sit at the bar, and Sean's back at the bar, lo and behold, right? And I'm like, dude, if I said anything that like pissed you off because I was bashing somebody, he's like, I don't give a shit. That's who I gathered who Sean was, is we're not going to offend him at all.
I love Rouse. He had so many great bits, and he was so quick, and he just didn't care. He'd been, his body and his life and everything he'd been through had just been so much. He just reached that point. He didn't give a shit, and I absolutely loved every bit of him. It was just bottled rage in this frail little,
yes,
wrinkled, body that was just, collapsing inside itself. I guess
he could barely hold a glass of whiskey or whatever it was he was drinking.
Very much like a claw. Yeah, it was just
right.
That rheumatoid arthritis, whatever. It just
right.
It was killing him, and eventually it was awful. But love him to death. He opened for Attell a lot, and Attell would take him out on the road with him, and so it's a pretty big thing when you're opening for Attell.
Yeah, for sure.
So and not only that, it kind of goes to show somebody as awesome as Attell thinks enough of you to have you open for him consistently. I think that's high praise.
And that's funny you mentioned that, because I didn't know that until you just mentioned it, that he was on the road with Attell, because I do remember sitting right next to him and saying to him, that guy that I went to the show with, I said, I don't think anybody has a better kind of cadence or rhythm than Attell does, because Attell has this masterful way of like, you think he just said the punchline, but he didn't. Now here's the punchline. And if you're laughing at the non-punchline, that's pretty hilarious, you're going to miss the actual punchline. Like that almost happens rapid fire. That cadence and the way that Attell tells a joke is pretty unique in that sense.
It's Skanks from the Memories is still one of my favorite comedy albums. Yes. And how quick he was. Like he was his bit was, does anybody here have any tattoos? And so everybody's I've got a turtle, I've got a bird, and then some lady yells out, what about scars? And and he just goes just so quick, doesn't miss a beat, just goes, all right, lady, I think the women's outreach program is down the street. You want to go there? But he's so fast, and
so fast.
I've seen him at Nashville a couple of times, and he still got it. And even when he did the crowd work tour,
I remember that.
He's great, man. He's awesome.
I think, was it the crowd work? Was that the one where he did like, it was like Philly and then like, I think it was like Houston maybe. And I think he did Minneapolis too, where I'm out of.
Was it where he would hand an audience member the camera and let them film it?
Yes. It was,
That was
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
And
just, yeah, he just
it was insane. Cause well, a little, my background a little bit is, so I did open mics a number of years ago. And I also worked as an usher at Acme Comedy Company here in Minneapolis.
oh, cool.
And I met a boatload of comedians and stuff. And the guy, so I would see people perform and I would see how their act would differ from night to night.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. The people who did really well, I thought, were the ones who did the best crowd work, because your jokes can land one night and not another night. And if you know kind of the feel of the audience and start working in that crowd work, you're going to still pull off a successful night. Because I would see people perform, joke would land successfully, the whole room's blown up. The next night, you could hear a pin drop.
It's so weird how that happens.
So crazy. And like, I still remember specifically to this day, I don't remember the name of the comic. They were like a feature or a MC, I can't remember. And they had this joke about how, they got their college degree and some useless degree. And they're like, so I've been a successful waiter, and that got a few chuckles. And then the next part of the joke was like, I'm really good at saying, would you like fries with that? And he made like a stupid face. And like one night fucking killed, right? Next day, nothing. The room was silent. And the guy just went on to his next joke. But the comedians that, were much more seasoned, much more, had, 20 years of stage time, they had the wherewithal to incorporate that joke failed. And now they're going to put the onus on the crowd, right? Yeah. They're like, and so many people were good at that. Patrice had he had a kind of an explanation of sorts.
Ooh, man, you're talking about a hammer now.
Yeah, a hammer, right? He goes, if I'm bombing, I'm bringing everyone else with me. And I thought that was brilliant, because like, what other choice do you have in the matter? If your joke isn't landing, he's gonna just bring the crowd with him. Like, you're gonna feel like I am then right now.
And with Patrice, and he also had so many weapons at his disposal. He was just a big guy naturally. Plus, he had a big presence. And if somebody the heckler got the best of him, he would just drown the heckler out with that huge laugh. And he was almost untouchable. And then, his era, when man, just think about, again, the other hammers that were around. I mean, he's constantly going back and forth with Louis C.K., Bill Burr, Attell. Yep. They're all, I mean, nothing but murderers row up there, just quick-witted, quick, fast, just slamming you. Just thinking about that table at the bar at the Comedy Cellar with all those dudes, and Colin Quinn's there, and everybody's just trashing each other. Yeah. God, just.
And how great of a comic do you become with that? That's the part that, like, I didn't understand when I was doing stand-up, was just being able to take it, because forget about it. If you really want to make a career out of stand-up comedy, you have to take every bit of criticism, and who better to do it than who you just mentioned. Just you walk into that room at the Cellar, right? And you see that table and you're walking by, you're gonna get it. And then because they're testing you to see like where you're at,
And they're pointing out everything from your shoes to your haircut and all up and down. And they probably trashed you before you even get to the table. And for sure. It toughens you up 100. You're either gonna get tough and be able to take it, or you're just gonna quit. There's no in between with that.
There is not. And I'm an example of the guy who could handle it, and now 20 years later, I'm like, now I got the thick skin. Back then I was like, what? Nobody likes me,
And had I started younger, I wouldn't have been able to take it either. My fragile ego as a 20-something-year-old. There's no way I
Yeah.
could have handled it.
Oh yeah, because I was doing it at, God, was I even 20? I think I was like barely 21 when the first time I got on stage at an open mic was at Acme Comedy Company. They had open mics on Mondays. Mondays was their open mic night. And if you were brand new, you automatically got to go on stage.
Yep.
Right. And the date was April 1st, 2002. So it was April Fool's Day was the first time I got on stage to do stand up. And then my other bit of trivia, the only time I ever got paid to do stand up was on Valentine's Day. And that was like 2003, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the only time I got paid. Valentine's Day, only first time I got on stage was April Fool's Day. So I feel like I have a little bit of accomplishment there somewhere.
Just out of curiosity, for Valentine's Day, were a bunch of couples in the audience?
Oh, for sure. So it was, the funny thing was like, it was a last minute, they didn't have an MC. And so most of the times that I did open mics was, there's this hotel that's right down the street from the Capitol in St. Paul. So like where all like the state senators like stay and fuck each other while they're having session, at the beginning of the year. And on Sunday nights, they had open mic. And it was like majority black crowd. So I did black crowds when I was doing mics. And I thought that was a way to get seasoned, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And God, where the fuck was I going with this now? What were we just talking about?
We're talking about Valentine's Day and couples.
Oh yeah. So the guy who ran that mic, his name is Jimmy Davis. He's been doing stand up forever here at Twin Cities. And I think he even lived in like Atlanta or something for a bit. He was around, he did stand up all over the place. Anyway, he called me up out of the blue and was like, hey, do you want to get paid to do comedy? I'm like, yeah, like I'm about to like shit my pants just now.
Yeah.
And it was in a basement of a bar in St. Paul. Maybe sat 30 people if you scrunched them in.
An
right?
Intimate setting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, intimate. And I was the MC. I forget who the feature was, but the headliner was, her name's Maggie Ferris. She tours, but she's like kind of a mainstay here in Minnesota. And I called a bunch of my friends. I'm like, guys, I'm getting paid to do stand up. And I got like 10 people to show up because there was 2 shows that night. I got 10 people to show up, roughly. I can't remember the exact number. So I got paid, because I got all these people to show up, they doubled what they were going to pay me. So I got paid $20. And so I did 10 minutes the first show, 10 minutes the second show, right? So I got $20 to do 20 minutes. And so I was like, I got paid $60 an hour to do stand-up.
Yeah.
That's how I like justified it, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, that's the most I've ever gotten paid in that amount of time.
It's so funny. There was, just thinking about that as far as a headliner. I remember one time was it 2015, 2016? I can't remember. It was down in Florida. It was a Comedy Zone, but then it turned into a nightclub as soon as the comedy was over. And it was like a multi-tiered bar. Like there was a mechanical bull and a 2-stepping, rodeo country bar and a karaoke thing and another. It was one of those deals.
Yeah.
And I remember I couldn't believe that they had a sign in our W-2s or W-4s before we even went on stage, that kind of thing. And I was standing next to the MC for the night, and I kind of looked over at his, and we were both getting paid $125. And so I thought, this is awesome.
Right.
Booze was free, and they had some finger foods, that kind of thing, all free. And the understanding that you tip your waitresses and bartenders very well, no problem. I was going to do that anyway. And this dude, he goes up, the MC goes, so I'm going to do about 15 minutes and get everybody warmed up for you, no problem. And dude gets up, eats shit for 3 minutes, quits, and brings me up to a completely cold cold audience. And that son of a bitch is getting paid the same thing as me, and he did 3 minutes. And I got to eat shit for 20.
Yeah, right.
I was
Oh
like,
my
who's
God.
the chump on this show?
And the thing that people don't seem to understand too is like eating shit for 3 minutes, it like destroys your soul. So when you got to eat shit for 20 minutes, like I have to imagine, because I've never done 20 minutes. I did 10 was the most I've ever done, right? And I have to imagine that when you're halfway through that 20-minute set, you're just gonna be like, I'm just gonna say whatever the fuck I want at this point.
It was where that area was, where Fort Walton Beach, so heavy military. And so I went,
Yes, I've been there. Yeah.
okay. And I went heavy at military stuff and nothing. I was like, damn, they don't even, because there's a lot of younger kids. If it was older guys, they would have laughed, because at that point they're
Right.
beyond the kind of the indoctrination from basic training and tech school and all that stuff. But these
Yeah.
guys are still red, white, and blue, and how dare you
Oh
say anything?
God.
So then you try to pivot and say something else about Florida drunks, and then they, mouthy people in the back. That sounds like me. Does it? It
Right.
was just one landmine after another for 20.
And you're just trying to relate to the crowd at that point.
Yeah, get anybody involved. Just come on, give me something, And then just like you said, about halfway through it, I was like, fuck this. If it's all just going to be negative, well, we're all just going to eat shit together.
God damn. Yeah. No. Well, so we're already, I don't know how many minutes into this. And I failed to mention how we even connected, because I'm trying to remember exactly if we connected via our military background or if it was our comedy background or something else. I think it was too.
Because I remember one of the first conversations we had on Twitter, we were both complaining about Facebook and how awful Facebook is. And I think you'd asked me, like, what was the primary reasons you got off? And, and then somehow it developed over that. Then we started DMing and started talking about military service, that kind of stuff. And so it was somewhere in there is where the weed comes together. I just can't remember any specificity on it,
Because I must have connected with you because of Stanhope, because I was following him, and then I must have saw you commenting here and there, and then realizing, oh, you're part of this collection of people that he has.
And probably that and I'll even go back and tell on myself a little bit. I was getting ready to retire, and so that was March of 2016. And so by late 2014, early 2015, I figured I'm going to have to get really good at this art stuff again. And so I needed to figure out my software and my hardware and really, get off my ass and get a portfolio underneath me. And at that time, I still didn't know how hashtags, or to me, it was still a pound sign. I didn't know the difference between that and @ signs. I didn't know how and why they did what they did. I was so I just hadn't explored Twitter and Instagram that much. And so I started doing drawing. I was hungover in bed one Sunday morning, and listened to Doug's podcast, and he puts out this cattle call because he was putting Kessler Rock Kenny and Reverend Derek up to run as mayors for Bisbee. And so he puts out this cattle call for artists and graphic designers to put campaign art together for yard signs, that kind of crap. And I went, you know what? I need to get off my ass and fire up the computer and start learning more about this software and this new drawing pad I've got. And so I grabbed a beer to stay ahead of hangover, and just immediately the research started. What do Kenny and Derek look like? And then once I submitted that, I don't even know if I hashtagged them and added them correctly back then.
Right.
But then I thought I need more experience, so I'm just going to draw everybody in the fun house. So Bingo, Tracy, Shaylee, Shank, Doug, everybody. And so that was the learning experience that I kept throwing out there, and I kept screwing it up because it wasn't like I knew any hip 20-year-olds to give me the down low on how Twitter and social media work.
Right.
So it was just had to learn by making a ton of mistakes. So we may have met there somehow. I don't know.
That sounds accurate, because I must have noticed some of the artwork along with because I think I'm almost certain Doug posted like your artwork as like so to explain to people, you did artwork that were like kind of like the promotion posters for like their tours and stuff, correct?
Yes. Anytime, and I don't want to name drop per se. I don't work with Doug. Doug doesn't call me saying, "Hey, I want a show poster." I always work with Shaylee, and so for every tour, they would want a tour poster to sell at the merch booth, and then that developed into stickers and T-shirts and that kind of stuff. And it took, it took a while to build up that trust because here I come out of nowhere basically.
Right.
And so, Shaylee would just kind of, hey man, can you change the font on this? Can you change the color on this? And then it built up to, hey, you want to do a full size poster? Of course I do.
Yeah, right.
That's how it started. Then Doug and Kreischer did a live a live stand-up podcast from the Bisbee Royale Theater in Bisbee. I did posters for that. Bert saw the posters. He goes, "Hey, I want him to do posters for me," and that's how I got hooked up with Bert. And
nice.
Sam Tripoli came along, and that's just how it slowly built, and it went from there.
Well, because I also want to bring in once we kind of clear the air how we've connected with each other, really get into your artwork too, because I think it's phenomenal, and I think I want to help get some exposure, even though I have like all of like 6 subscribers on this channel right now.
They may be the only ones you need.
Right, exactly. At least I have somewhat of a following on Twitter that I can post this out to, so we'll see.
I'd rather have 6 really cool followers than 600 dirtbags.
Correct, yeah, for sure. So anyway, so we connect, and then we kind of, like you were kind of stating earlier, I call it swapping war stories. Neither one of us have been to war, but we swap our experiences.
Well, I mean,
wait, you have?
Yeah, I was deployed in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq from 2003 2008. I was in a lot.
Holy shit! How many times were you deployed?
I had to go pick up my DD-214s just to be able to say that. But 2003 we came home August 31st of 2003. We're home for a month, and we went back. At that point, we were at Al Udeid for 2 months, from October 1st to December 1st, 2003. Then we went up to Karshi-Khanabad, in Uzbekistan for another 2 months. And then at that point, then we started doing the rotations. 3 months here, a month home, 6 months there, a month home, whatever the rotation called for. Because they didn't care about us as the meat. They cared about our C-130s. That's what they cared about.
Well, you're a crew chief, right?
I was a load master.
Oh, load master. Okay.
So I was in the back of the. People don't know what that is. Primary gig at that point was hauling packs and trash. So you're loading pallets of stuff and all the people on and all their crap on, and you're doing the weight and the moments compared to the fuel, and you do all the math to make sure you can take off and safely land as evenly weight distributed as possible.
Right.
And we also do a ton of air medical evacuation stuff where we're setting up litters, and we picked up the people in the 2004 UN explosion in Baghdad, and their arms are gone, legs are gone. I don't know who wants to hear that crap, but that's in the back of the plane. And then once Afghanistan comes around, then we start doing a lot of airdrops again, which that's kind of our a big function. We're flying low and slow over and airdropping to FOBs, and that was always the first couple missions of the day, and then the rest of the day, for the next 12 hours or so, you're just hauling packs and trash. So, but it's and again, I was in the Air National Guard. Let me say that I needed money for college, and I joined the Air National Guard for all the reason one joins the Air National Guard. I didn't want to do shit. I didn't want to work hard. I wanted to go to basic training and tech school, and then 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. That was it. And I thought, I'm only going to do my 6 years, get out, have this good civilian job. Things are going to be fine. But then I thought, this actually isn't a bad little part-time job.
Right.
College is paid for, no debt. It's like, you know what? Go ahead and give me another 6 years of this. And
that's how they get you.
about a year and a half later, 9/11 happened. And almost overnight, we got activated. They didn't know what they were going to do with us. At that point, they had pre-positioned us at Cherry Point with the Marines, and they didn't know. They just didn't know how they were going to do it. But you know as well as I know, they were playing global monopoly on who's going to carve up the country and who's going to get the oil, who's going to. Because when we got there in early 2003, shit, there was as many oil contractors and telecom contractors, and you know, than there were of us. They were basically using the Army for defense and us for transportation.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, no, I joined the Air Guard pretty hastily around 2003. I joined in January 2003, and so I came in originally as a 2T2, which is God, what was that even called? Air transportation, I think is what it was called. So we worked a lot with the load masters and the crew chiefs.
Were you airport or?
Yeah, aerial port. Yep.
Yeah,
and
we depended a lot on those guys.
And so I end up, so get a load of this. So you'll appreciate this. So you know how you had to do those stupid tests every so often to like for promotion and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, and the subsequent interview.
Yeah, I failed it because I didn't give a flying fuck about it, right? I didn't give a fucking shit about it, right? I failed it, and they're like, "We're gonna give you two options. You can either join a different, you can get a different AFSC, or is that what it was called, AFSC?
Yeah, AFS, Air Force Specialty Code.
And or you can get out." And I was like going to school at the time, so I'm like, well, I don't have a choice, you know.
Yeah.
So I was going to school for broadcasting, and they had an opening in the public affairs at my Air Guard base.
Yeah.
So I interviewed for it there. I was already, yeah, I was interning at the sports talk radio station that was like the flagship station for like the Vikings and Timberwolves and all this stuff.
That's cool.
And so they're like, yeah, you're already like in, because so it turned out that the Army National Guard public affairs officer was like a huge sports nut, and he was already like tied in with a bunch of the local networks and everything. And so I got hired on at the wing.
Yep.
And then like 6 months later, I got hired on full-time staff as a tech with the state. And I was the first one doing audio podcasts for the state back in, what year was that? Like 2006, 2007, I guess it was.
So you said as a tech, were you like an Air Reserve technician or a tech sergeant?
Yes.
Yeah, because
technician.
I was a technician. You know, for people that don't know, we're dual status. We had you had a kind of a state job, and I'm trying to explain this to people, and they just don't get it.
You're paid as a civilian on the tech side. It's your 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and then you're an airman, the weekend drills and the 2-week train up every year. So but you still wear the uniform.
Unless you catch a flight for the weekend, then you go on either Title 10 or Title 32 orders, and that depends where the pot of money comes from, whether it comes from the Guard Bureau and federal and state, and it gets muddy so quickly to civilians.
So quickly.
Who has no idea what that is, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of arbitrary to them, but like at the same time, it's like you should kind of get educated on this to know like there's so many different money pots, and you don't know who's funding what. And at the end of the day, it's your tax money, you know?
And pre 9/11, the National Guard used to be the best kept secret as far as in the government, as far as I'm concerned. It was a great job pre 9/11.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like I don't know that world because I joined in 2003, but I can imagine that it was the best kept secret, because you would get to go to Hawaii for 2 weeks to do training, right? And then
Germany for 3 months.
Is that right? Yeah.
Well, we were going in and out of Bosnia, but still though, you're back home. You're back in Germany every night drinking, having a big time. You just can't be late for the plane the next day.
K-Town? Is that where you're at?
Well, really close. We're at Simbach, which is just, right there, basically across the A6 from Kaiserslautern, but our planes were parked at Ramstein.
So my 2-week train up that I did when I was in air transportation with Aerial Port was at K-Town.
Yeah.
And so we had, God, it was a bunch of us. It was like close to 100. I think it was like 70 or 80 airmen that got on that trip.
Yeah.
And so they had to split up the times that you worked. And it was myself and was it 3 of us? Yeah, it was myself. So it was 4 of us on the late shift.
Yeah.
We didn't do shit. There was nothing to load. There was nothing to do. The full-time Air Force guys there were just like, I don't know, like there's a break room in the back. There's like whatever, we all, I remember distinctively, like we would quote Beavis and Butthead pretty much for like 8 hours at, in the middle of the night while everyone else is sleeping. The only thing that sucked was when it came to like doing stuff around like the base or around like K-Town or whatever, we were asleep because we had to be up at whatever our shift was. So we did on the one weekend that we had, a bunch of us rented a van and drove to Switzerland, and we did whitewater rafting in the Alps.
That's awesome.
That was badass. Yeah.
Man, I was there for the pretty months, and but mostly I was there in the winter months. So a lot of times what I would do is if I knew I had the weekend off, I'd buy my ticket. As soon as I got off work on Friday, boom, I'd jump on the train, take a nap, and I wake up and I'm in Zurich or I'm in Paris and just enjoy the weekend out there. Loved it. But no, I never got to go kayaking or canoeing, or that'd be awesome.
Dude, it was insane because so I had been to Switzerland previously when I was a teenager. I went on a school trip and we did Italy, Switzerland, and France back in 1999. And so like people were trying to figure out, who's going where? Because people were like, want to go different places. And people were like, we're going to go to, I had never been to Berlin. There was a group going to Berlin, but all the people that I worked with and the people I got along with were going to Switzerland. I'm like, I've already been to Switzerland. Fuck that, but I did like it the first time I went there. And they're like, yeah, but we're going to go whitewater rafting in the Alps. And I'm like, I'm on board. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. And I got to drive the van on the Autobahn there and back. And it was a hell of a trip. I think it was at least 4 hours, I want to say.
I would say, yeah.
And so I'm driving this van that tops out at 80 on the Autobahn, right? And I couldn't believe it. There were times where I was passing cars. I'm like, my foot is literally on the floor.
Yeah.
It tops out at 80 miles per hour. I couldn't believe that I was passing anyone. If anyone's ever driven on the Autobahn, you literally cannot be in the left lane if there's a car in the left lane. You cannot. And there were 2 close calls on the way back where I was passing someone and there wasn't anyone behind me when I began passing. But I'm halfway through and I'm like, fuck. And I'm just trying to do my best to get around this guy so this fucking Lamborghini doesn't like blow us off the road.
That's when my commander at the time had sent me up to Frankfurt to pick up a family member, a visitor. And so threw me the keys to the 5 Series BMW that they were renting at the time. And I took off, just hauling ass up the A6. Yeah. And just like you said, if I wasn't passing, I was in that completely right-hand lane, getting the hell away from everybody. And anytime I had to pull out to pass somebody, you wave like on the horizon. If you see some satellite splash, you better. If you saw a dot, you wouldn't do it. You better get the hell in the right lane quick, because I mean, just like you said, a Ferrari, a Lambo, something is coming up about 200 miles an hour. Oh yeah, they're flying.
Yeah, it was insane. I was so happy that I got the opportunity to do that, to drive on the Autobahn, because. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity again, because and I'm actually kind of happy that I drove such a piece of shit vehicle too, right? Because it's like, it's one thing to be like, oh, dude, I drove a Ferrari on the Autobahn. It's like, okay, cool, but like, no, I drove a piece of shit Ford European van that topped out at 80.
I won't tell these dudes' names. You wouldn't know, but it's funnier if you know their personalities. But myself and 2 other guys. We're at Simbach, you're just eating, pork and potatoes the whole time, bratwurst. And so we took this little Volkswagen Golf from there to Amsterdam, from Simbach to Amsterdam. and we're just farting the whole way up there the entire time. I mean, you pull up to a gas station, you roll down the windows, you just fumes of
Yeah,
ass
right.
just come out, just pungent, just awful. It's like our eyebrows are falling out, but we start laughing how awful and ridiculous it is. But just like you said, a piece of shit van, it's the same way that golf was. Your
Oh
foot is to
yeah.
the floor the entire time.
Especially when you have that many people in the car.
Yes, I can't
It weighs
imagine
it
what it
down.
was. Yeah, I can't imagine what it was, a full van like you, plus being high profile with the winds.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing I didn't take in consideration. We had a full van. There must have been 8 people in that thing.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I
That's
did a road trip a number of years ago. My buddy was a camp counselor out in Big Bear, California, and we
cool.
drove from Minnesota out there, and so we drove through Colorado.
Yeah.
And if you go through the mountains, some of those hills in the mountains are just unbelievable. And I had a Mazda 626, like this little like 4-banger, and there's the 3 of us in the car plus his 3 months worth of luggage in the trunk. There were times going up some of those hills where we were like crossing our fingers that we were going to get up it and over on the other side.
The engine struggles for sure.
I was doing like 20 miles an hour on a major highway going up a hill, going like, I don't know, we'll find out,
And in 2019, that's exactly the way, because I've driven out through Denver, driven out through Colorado before, but in 2019, that's exactly how I found out that Bisbee is 300 feet higher in altitude than Denver is. Because I couldn't believe it. I learned the hard way, just like you were saying. I'm in my little 4-banger Jeep, and I start going up these long, steep grades. Well, these not really long, steep grades, but very long, gradual grades. And my engine starts kind of struggling. And so I'm having to downshift into 4th gear out of 5th, going up this hill. And I'm like, then down into 3rd. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? I'm out here in the desert.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wait a minute, do I need to change my spark plugs? What is going on with this?
Right.
We just came out of Tucson, and it's flat as a board for a while.
For sure.
And then I get to Doug's house and I start looking up. I'm like, holy shit, Bisbee is taller than Denver. I had no idea. And my Jeep was struggling.
That's crazy. I had no idea. And you wouldn't think about that at all. You'd think Arizona desert, flatland, all that. Yeah. But it is the mountains. Yeah. So I never got deployed, but I was in Egypt for a year. Yeah, right.
You're not going through shit right now.
So it's funny you mentioned like nobody wants to hear about all the body parts and stuff like that you guys had to pick up. But that is one thing that I still think that us vets, we all keep all that like fucked up shit close to the vest, and we'll only tell each other that stuff. Yeah. I truly believe that's one of the things that we need to talk about more, so people don't go and just kind of blow off like, oh, war in Iraq, whatever, for 20 years, when they start hearing that shit, I might get a few people thinking the other direction. That's maybe another podcast. We're kind of on a different direction here, but
and you hit the nail on the head. If people want to really start thinking more in detail about what it is, say you go into Mosul, northern Iraq, and when we pick them up from that AOR, they're not in those pretty
the
with the flag draped and all. They're on litters, they're in body bags, and depending on how bad the IED was, it's a half a body bag because the parts are folded on themselves. We're just bringing the remains back. And you hit turbulence and you see like a chest cavity heave, and it kind of hits you. It's like, that's somebody's kid, that's somebody's brother, it's somebody's dad, that's somebody's cousin. People knew that guy or that gal. And when you start seeing it like that, it's people should think twice about being so cock strong about going to another conflict.
For sure.
There should be a lot of considerations taken into account before
again
makes a reaction.
Again, this might be a different podcast, but Vietnam era, like they're watching war footage on the nightly news while they're sitting on with dinner with their family, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens? You get a bunch of protests. You get a bunch of people like, why the hell are we over there asking questions, right? Got none of that. with Iraq and Afghanistan. Like you saw the initial attack back in March of 2003, and that was it. Like the coverage, you know, maybe there was a little bit with some of the corporate news with their embedded reporters and things like that. Maybe in the first few months of the initial push, but for the rest of the period, for the next 2 decades, nobody saw anything.
It's people became so numb, and just like you were saying, it wasn't just repetitive and just beating you over the face every night like a bat. I was in a restaurant one time, saw an old buddy, he had his girlfriend with him, and she, they were like, "Hey, what have you been doing?" I said, "Well, I've been deployed." This was 2004 or something, and she goes, "Was that still going on?"
What?
Is it still going on? Shit,
in 2004?
There's no end in sight.
Was she coming from the approach of like the 90 invasion, where like it was like done and over in like a matter of months, and people just thought that was just how conflicts work nowadays?
I'll be honest, I didn't really ask, because at that point, looking back, I was still kind of going through some PTSD stuff.
Sure.
And I didn't really have time to talk to those kind of people. I was like, I'm not going to tell you what I just saw. I'm not going to.
Right.
And I just, at that point, I'd blow people off pretty quickly. And, I didn't even know I was going through PTSD shit till me and some other pilots and other aircrew members got together. And, we started talking about waking up and running through the house naked. Like, why? You just,
nobody knows how to deal with that. Nobody knows how to like.
And you can't tell anybody, or they'll kick you off flying status, and that gets in your pocket. They take money away from you. It's like, well, shit, I got bills to pay still. I can't just have less money.
Oh my God. There's so many layers to all of that. And that's just one. And like, it's a big one. And nobody, unless they experience it, understand what that means.
And in no form or fashion did I have it rough. There's people that had it way worse. Tons of people had it way worse than I did.
Yeah.
And there's no telling what they went through. Sure, we slept in tents and on cot, but we weren't sleeping in the dirt. And there's people have it way worse than me, and people like me.
So when so if people aren't aware, I was in the Air National Guard for 5 years. I hastily joined the active duty Army and did another 5 years with the active duty Army. And when I was stationed in Maryland, I was with a combat camera unit. I was a broadcast journalist for them. So I could have still gotten deployed in the sense that some of the combat cameramen did, but I didn't have a great physical fitness score, so I wasn't really considered. Kind of a blessing in disguise.
Nothing wrong
with that. Yeah, I came from the Air National Guard world where like physical fitness, like there's like dudes that are like fatter than, I don't know.
They let Sergeant Steelcraft do their PT test.
Exactly. So anyway, but I knew guys that got like attached with like special forces in like the fucking mountains of Afghanistan, right? These are like people that like I know and like hang out with, and like, oh, you're getting deployed. Who am I getting attached with? These like special forces guys for like 6 months, And so they're doing all the like sleeping in, sleeping bags in the mountains and stuff like that, and doing the whole like blowing people up and cross our fingers, we got the right guy, and like that whole like world. And there was a buddy of mine who was a Mormon from Utah. And he was married, and they had a kid that was born around the same time as my kid was. So we kind of, became buddies or whatever, our families. And like, she ran the house, dude. She ran the house. Like, he was afraid to like spend money on like a credit card because she might find out. Like, she would, like, we'd be out, be like, dude, we're just gonna go get dinner at Cracker Barrel. And he's like, I don't know if I can spend the money. Like, that's how like of a tight ship it was at his house. After he came back from Afghanistan, after being in 6 months with the special forces and blowing people up and like living out in the mountains, he ran that motherfucking show after that.
Different world for her.
Oh my God, man. And I saw, like, it's just, you just see this immense change in personality, and like, things that actually matter now, and things that don't matter because this world is fucked up and you don't know what's going on. And like, he went from being like this super nice passive dude to like, we're buying a sex ring and I'm fucking you in it. And I'm, that's just the mentality.
I know two guys that immediately pop in my head for that exact scenario you're talking about. One guy works in the motor pool, or worked in the motor pool, and then they
Okay.
go, "Oh, we know you're an Air National Guard guy, but we need motor pool guys to go out on these convoys with these Army guys." And yeah, got right in the middle.
That's
of
how you
ambush.
died. That is how you died, is going on convoys.
And sure enough, ambush, IED. He gets, he's out there returning fire, and he gets blasted, like grenade hits, and this big, huge piece of metal gets from the concussion hit. He gets hit with that, which is probably the only thing that saved his life. But it still, messed him up inside. And then of course there's PTSD and all that shit. But another guy drove a fuel truck. He would fuel planes, but then they did the same thing. Hey, you're not currently driving a fuel truck. We need you to go out on this convoy with these guys. And same thing when they came home, different world for their wives.
Oh my God. I mean, like, I've heard horror story after horror story. So when I ended up getting full time with the National Guard, this was 2006, 7. And so Minnesota had just returned their troop. They had 2,000 troops that were gone for a total of 22 months, 6-month train up in Mississippi before they got deployed to, I'm pretty sure it was Iraq.
Yeah.
And then it was supposed to be only like 8 or 9 months in theater. And then Bush did the troop surge. So everyone who was deployed got their orders extended. And these are National Guard guys. These aren't the active duty dudes. That's another thing people don't understand, is that National Guard got the fucking shit on with
in 2003. We didn't have a return date on our orders when they sent us over there the first time.
Christ.
So we knew in February of 2003 that we were going to be activated. And then March of 2003, the orders came down and everybody was like, where the fuck is our return date? When are we coming back home? Like, well, we'll find out when we get over there. And everything, like every brief, commander's brief was like, we should know something in 2 weeks. That went on for 6 months.
Right. Yeah, right. 2 weeks. Shit. Yeah. Oh my God. So these guys, so they were gone a total of 22 months. When they came back, I was a part of a team, the public affairs team, that helped like organize this. It was called like a Beyond the Yellow Ribbons kind of conference, I guess. Yeah. And so there was a bunch of people that talked about their experiences and coming back home and struggles and this and that and the other thing. And I heard 2 stories that blew my mind when I was there. One guy was talking about how he had been back. He was with his family and they went out to dinner and they got lost on the way home. And so they're driving and there's like this huge like meadow hill, and the guy sees the road that he's supposed to be on so they can get back home. So he just drives into it and starts bouncing around in their SUV with the kids in the back and the wife in the passenger seat. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, that's where I need to go. That's the shortest route to the destination. He was still in that mind frame of like, that's where I need to go, shortest route, because danger could be ahead this way. Yeah. And he couldn't turn it off because he spent the last 18 months worried about being blown up whenever he would drive off the fob. So there was that story. The other one I heard that just blew my mind was this guy was in a National Guard unit in Minnesota. He lived in North Dakota. So when they came back from deployment, they had to do like this like drawdown at this base in Wisconsin, like southern Wisconsin, so nowhere near the Twin Cities. So they had to do this drawdown at how many ever days that took, a week or whatever. Then they had to report to their unit in Minnesota, wherever that was. Yeah. And have to do like a debrief and all this other crap, which took probably another 5 days or whatever that was. Then they could go home, right? So they're already extended in theaters 6 months, and saw a bunch of their friends die along the way, right? Come home, you're still, now you're in the States, right? But like, you're kind of in the home, but not really. Yeah. This dude finally gets to his fucking house in North Dakota, right? After all this, puts his key in the door. Key doesn't work. Wife had power of attorney, divorced him, sold the house, didn't tell him anything. So after all of that, he's finally at the front doorstep of his house, and he can't even get in because it's not his house anymore.
Jesus.
Can you imagine that?
No,
No.
at all. It's like, God, it's, I mean,
And people wonder why like troops are like nuts.
Yeah.
You know,
people get shot for less than that.
Way less.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
Jesus.
We've gone totally off the rails here. I wanted to talk about comedy and artwork, and we're talking about dude, seriously, like I've had some fucked up jobs in the past, and if like you can't laugh at that shit, you are gonna blow your head off. Like I worked in funeral homes for a summer. Like everyone in the back had like the darkest sense of humor, because if you didn't, you were gonna be like looking at dead bodies all day and going like, oh my God.
Yep.
You know, so we would make jokes like, you know, there's people obviously I won't say names because
Sure.
that would suck, but you know, you'd be walking by, because there was like a portion in the back where they would do like the embalments and stuff like that.
Sure.
So there'd be full on like just dead bodies just laying there, right? And there'd be a number of times where I'd be walking by and I'm like, God, that dead guy has got a bigger dick than I do. You know, like you had to keep it funny, otherwise you're just gonna lose your shit.
In Nashville here, I used to kind of have two sets. I used to have kind of a clean set for a clean crowd.
Yeah, your Jimmy Fallon set.
Yeah, kind of, and then whatever else I wanted to do, you know, and then have fun. But as a kid, from a small little redneck town, my mother was the hairdresser that would get called to go to the funeral homes to fix the hair.
Oh, sure.
Bodies that would come in. So there was no babysitter. So she'd take me with her. And so a lot of times, as a kid, I'd have to sit in there, and there's dead bodies laying around these gurneys. You know, they get scraped over them, of course. And so yeah, there's a couple bits I have in the clean set that as a kid and those memories. So
oh my God.
I can imagine as adults who have to joke about that, you know, lest they accept the darkness at that point. But I can completely understand the jokes that happen there.
Oh, and yeah, you had to. It's just otherwise it would just be like, the hell am I doing here? All right, so let's get into some of your work, and then let's talk about like the projects that you're working on, because you're doing the Twitch thing pretty frequently, right?
Trying to, you know, I learn something new on Twitch every single day, but it seems like consistency and the viewers that support you and follow you, you've got to make it consistent for them. So I've been trying to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1500, 3 o'clock Central Standard Time is what I'm trying to do. I'm still playing around with the times to see what works best, because I'm getting people from, you know, South Korea is just waking up, but the UK is just going to bed. And then here it is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for me. And it's, you know, obviously you want to boost the viewership and hopefully, you know, boost all that. So I'm still playing around with the exact times, but Monday, Wednesday, and Friday seems to be good, consistent times. That gives me time on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday to pull the videos, edit a highlight reel, and post those to my homepage. And the thought of that was, I'll download those videos and then edit them, put music to them, and then upload those to YouTube, so I can double bang, but only have to film once. That was the intent. And I'm still trying to figure out how to break it down for YouTube.
That's a lot though, man. That's 3 days a week. That's a lot of drawing.
And then, well, it's not really the drawing, you know, because it's really just a couple hours. But then the editing and the downloading and, you know, dealing with your system speed, that's where the real time, you know, because as I get older, as we get older, time is our biggest commodity. It's the most precious, and you can't get that back. And as the older you get, the more you appreciate it. And
for sure,
it's real work. Me and some other older folks on Twitch have been talking about it. But the time you set up overlays and get your stream bots, you know, set up, I mean, it's a full-time job and a lot of hours.
It really is.
Can be invested in that big time.
Well, working in public affairs in the military, I mean, you probably saw it from time to time. I don't know, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But, you know, we'd be out on location and we got a camera in our hand, whether it's a still or video, you know, or we're interviewing someone. some people are like, oh, you're just taking pictures. I could take pictures. That ain't shit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, dude, you want to do all the captioning, you want to do all the editing, you want to go through like the whole process of making sure that we're not doing something illegal. You want to go through all that stuff too.
Press
Like
releases, running through the commanders for approval, all that stuff.
All that shit. Like, and I did a mission on a Navy ship where we would literally it was 12, was it 12 countries? It was a number of countries for 5 months, and you'd have to get up at like 4 a.m. to make sure that you're on like the boat to get to shore, and then you'd have to connect with like all the logistic people to make sure that you get to the right location. You have to make sure you found the right subject matter expert that you're going to interview later, and then plus you've got to get all your footage, whether it's still or video, and then you have to interview the person. You got to figure out questions because you got to know what the fuck you're writing about. And then by that time it's like 3 o'clock, and you're racing to make sure you get back to transportation so you can get back on the boat to get back to the ship. Then you got to eat dinner. Then you got to download all your shit. Then you got to write all your shit. Then you got to edit all your shit. And then you still had to go to the gym because you couldn't be a fat ass while you're on mission. We would be done. We would be up at 4, done with our workout at 10. And so we wouldn't have had a moment to ourselves this whole time. And like the people I work with were fucking amazing. Because this one chick had, she had 2 terabytes of movies and TV shows. So at 10 is when once we were done with everything, we'd go back and we watch like a movie or something. And then like literally our head would hit the pillow and we'd be done, and then be doing the exact same thing the next day. Like video, all this like media work, man, it just eats up all your time.
It does. And that's if you're having a great day and no systems are crashing.
Oh yeah, forget that.
That's on a great day when things are chugging along the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if you have a chance to like share any of your work at all. If you have the ability to do that, I'm more than happy for you to like, if you want to bring up anything that you're proud of, or any of the latest stuff that you're working on.
One thing I've just been doing lately is, and honestly, I've just got a lot of surplus of art supplies that I've just been trying to get rid of. And these just ink pens laying around, and a lot of old markers that are 25 years old. I'm just tired of looking at them. I don't want to just toss them. I don't want to just be a wasteful consumer. I want to use them all. So what I started doing was just doing rough sketches of. I started back in October doing these rough sketches, these little ink pen sketches, and if you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like this guy, just millions.
This is all ink pen work.
Yeah, it's all
strictly all ink pen.
These big Gelocity pens.
Yeah.
$10 for a pack of 12. And
right.
I've been saying this is like a perfect medium for meth heads, because there's like a billion individual lines in there. You just go nuts on. And
you do everything from like comedians to like, there's Farley. Yeah. You do comedians, you do other like movie stars, and you do like
anybody cool. I try to do Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday.
Phenomenal
kind of stuff. And so that style is what led me to do that 24 hours of Andy Andrist.
Yes.
So I did Anton, No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
However you pronounce it. And
the weirdest haircut in the history of the world.
Yeah. Samuel Jackson.
That's awesome.
But then the man of the hour, the guy that was all 4, was this guy, Andy Andrist, our comedian buddy. And so that's how it started. I just wanted to start using up some of these little sketchbooks and using up my ink pens, and I started working with that little style, and people seem to like it, and it's fun for me because I can drink while doing it.
Yeah, dude, what a way to kill some time and promote yourself,
Yeah.
So I will put all your like stuff in the description of like, so it's Husky Boyo, and that's both for Twitter and Instagram, correct?
Yes.
So I'll put all that stuff in there, and then obviously you can connect with Brett if you want to help out with his fundraising, and then help him out, put some money in his pocket too.
You've got less than 24 hours now. If people want to buy the art on eBay for Andy, we're well with, yeah, I think about noon tomorrow. So we've got 22 hours. And
I'll make sure I
wrapped
post this
up.
as soon as possible then, to make sure that people still have an opportunity to do that then.
That's cool.
And yeah, and dude, the work with the pens is phenomenal. And I know like you still do a bunch of stuff, like there's some apps that you use on the computer too for some of your artwork.
Procreate.
Yeah.
I use I'm gonna bitch a little bit. You may want to edit this out. I don't know, but
yeah,
and it's corporations is what I'm gonna bitch about. But
for sure. Go nuts.
Okay, late 2019. I was still kind of sort of doing work with Bert and Doug and all those guys, but then Apple released, I think it's OS 10, and the title of it was Catalina. And I didn't know at the time what that meant. I thought, okay, new operating system. I'll download it. Maybe it'll have some better protection and maybe make my machine a little faster. And it did not. It didn't do any of that. What it did was Catalina was released and dumped on us because I'm still running the i5 Intel chip. So it specifically was created to destroy our systems, where then we would have to upgrade and buy newer systems. So if you're on the i5, i6 chips or previous, you were done if you downloaded Catalina, because you couldn't even. I was trying to get rid of, revert back to the old OS, that kind of stuff. It just wasn't happening. And so the next one came out, and my machine started working a little better, but it was still not functional. So Apple effectively took money off my table, or food off my table, and money away from me for about a year and a half, because I couldn't do anything. So I got pissed off, went back to traditional stuff, which people seem to like. I kind of took, it wasn't that I took a chance, I just didn't have any other option. And so I started researching about, okay, I've got to work at the same quality and the same pace as I did previously. So, and here's where the kind of the irony comes in. My best option was to get an iPad, the Apple Pencil 2, and then Procreate. And Procreate, $10 application. I had no idea how tremendous it was and how strong it was and powerful. It's fantastic. It does everything Photoshop was. So I dumped Photoshop and Illustrator, which saved me about $600 a year on both those apps. And just I thought in 1994, if I'd come back from the future and go, in 2021, you'll never use Photoshop or Illustrator again. You'll be using a $10 app. My first question would be, what the hell's an app? And,
right.
And not anymore. And but that's what I use now, is the iPad, and highly portable, highly functional. As long as I've got a charging station and an internet connection, that's all I need. It's great.
That's good. That's good, man. And like you said though too, like the
stupid Apple.
Fuck Apple. I have all these fucking Apple products and I fucking hate them. And it's just like, hey, what are you gonna do? No, but like you were mentioning too, like the old school sketch stuff too is just phenomenal. And I imagine you get probably a kick out of doing it too, right?
It's fun. Yeah, it's there's some separation when you do it digitally. Once you do it digitally, it's polished, and I get, I can always hit undo and that kind of, use the keyboard functions, and I can get it exactly the way I want to, and I can play around with the colors and do the airbrush, and it's so much faster. But it's not like the appreciation. I can open this up and get that magic marker high. It just feels like tangible work. There's something about the tangible stuff that I like better than the sketchbook.
Weird that they're like that they're trying to push us to this virtual world, but there's still something to that whole natural world. Like we're just talking about magic marker, it's not too natural, but you get the gist of it anyway.
It's the same thing. I tried to read ebooks and e-comic books.
Impossible.
I need that tangible smell of that old book, or I need the pages of that comic book.
For sure.
I need that tangible feeling. I sit in my hand.
That's one thing that failed miserably, that I was very, very happy to see fail miserably, was those stupid ebooks. All right, dude. So Husky Boyo, Instagram, Twitter, your Twitch account, is that also Husky Boyo?
Also Husky Boyo across the board.
Okay.
And I've got 13, I got some YouTube channels out there. For that, you can type in Husky Boyo as well, or Drunk Drawer.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm trying to play on the alliteration.
Yeah, you put that in the tagline. Yeah. Perfect, man. And then so you said Monday, Wednesday, Friday are your live streams on Twitch?
Yes, that's what I'm totally consistent.
3:00 Central.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously if that changes, you'll put some
sure.
disclaimers out there. But dude, this was great. We've chatted on Twitter a number of times, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't even know what the fuck you looked like.
The only reason I knew what you looked like was I think you'd posted you went to a couple of DC protests or something.
Yeah.
That's the only way I knew what you looked like, and that was recent, Right. I've never been a big selfie guy, and I think that was my big hesitation with social media in the first place. I didn't want to put too much of myself out there. And now as I get older, it's like, okay.
I've gone with that. So that stupid logo I have, the Koi Contrarian logo that I use, that blue one.
Yeah.
I seriously did that in God, what did I use? I think I used Keynote.
Yeah.
And just did it that way because I was like, I fucking suck at this shit. So I knew how to angle it like this, and then I just did it like a screen capture of it, and I'm like, that works.
Done.
Because I didn't want to put my stupid mug up as my profile picture.
And that's why I've got that rough sketch of mine that I've got.
I figured that was you. I wasn't 100% sure, but I figured that's who that was. But like I said, I had no idea what the fuck you look like, so I could only assume.
I should update it, but that's work. And then you're just submit it to a social media outlet anyways, who cares?
Well, that's the thing is now everyone knows when they look at your post that it's you because I did take away the Koi Contrarian logo for a bit because I have a schmog. Did you ever wear a schmog when you're in Middle East?
Nope.
It's this thing.
We had goggles, and then we had some handkerchiefs we used. That's about it. Yeah.
So a schmog is one of these.
Yep.
Right.
We never dealt with gin pop really.
And so I had a profile picture where I was wearing it like this.
Yeah.
And I won't tie it, but and then just had it up like that.
Yeah.
And I had that up for probably a week or so. And then I'm like, nobody's gonna know that it's me because nobody pays attention to Twitter handles. They look at profile pictures. So I got rid of that and went back to the old standby.
I thought you were gonna say some redneck started jumping in. You jihadist, what are you doing?
What's funny is as soon as all the mask mandates started happening, I have that, and I also have a keffiyeh, which is just a smaller version of one of those. And so I would wear it almost like a bandana, and I'm like, oh, I'm dressing up as the former boogeyman to get everybody to get off my ass about the new boogeyman.
The rhetoric has been ridiculous since 2001.
For real, dude. It's insane world. It's clown world since then. All right, man. This was awesome. I really fucking appreciate this, and hopefully, hopefully this gets some people to want to come on because this is a blast, and obviously we have a little bit of a similar background, parallel backgrounds to some degree, but it's still different in our experiences and all that. So that's kind of what I want to get out of this. Plus, promote all your kick-ass work. So
I appreciate it. Again, I looked up at the time. We don't, it seems like it's flown by. We've been going for an hour and 17. It looks like.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Okay.
That's great. Yeah. But this has been so much fun, and I'm so glad to finally meet you and actually talk to you, not just DMing on Twitter, stupid Twitter. And so,
dude, I want to get down to Tennessee because I'm trying to figure out where the hell I'm going to live someday because my kid graduates high school in 5 years. We briefly, between the two of us, we talked about Eastern Tennessee at one point. I want to check that out. I want to check out South Carolina. And I kind of checked the map of where I am. And there's a town in Sumter, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And I think I go through, if I don't go through Nashville, I go through like Louisville maybe, and then part of like Eastern Tennessee or something.
I was
But
going to say maybe even Lexington.
that's probably what it is. I
Yeah,
can't
'cause you
remember
got
exactly.
Louisville, then Lexington here. Well, the opposite.
Yeah.
Lexington is east of Louisville, and more than likely, if you're going to South Carolina, you probably go that way, I think. But
So I'm going to try to make a road trip about. I have no idea when the hell I'm going to do it, but if I ever figure it out, I'll hit you up because I love Nashville. I haven't been to Nashville since like 2003 maybe. So I'm sure it's like totally fucking different.
2003 is when I started not liking it because
Oh, really?
it became this corporate kind of it became new Nashville is like how Vegas is. Now you've got all these big honky tonks and big neon lights and $10 beers. It's like what happened to Times Square with,
Yeah.
it's just all old Nashville was cool. And I love Nashville in the late 90s, early 2000s. But by 2003, here comes the developers and here comes the mass money makers. So I'm definitely ready to move away from this place somewhere a
Yeah,
little
I can imagine.
somewhere a little smaller, somewhere a little more woodsy.
Well, because I moved away from Austin in 2017, and it was already a shit show when I left. It was a shit show when I got there in 2013.
Yes.
Because I felt like I got to the party like 5 years too late then.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the only reason my memory in Nashville is, and I'll wrap this up here, but my buddy and I, same guy I drove out to Big Bear. We drove from Minneapolis to Miami, Florida, which is quite a haul. And we stopped through Nashville. I mean, we went to a Predators game.
Yeah.
And so we went on that like strip leading up to where the arena is for the Predators. We're like, this is fucking sweet. Like, because it was like April, I want to say.
Oh yeah, it's
And
not bad at all.
oh my God, the weather was perfect. There was like all those bars that had like all those like open.
Yeah, you're on Broadway.
Like, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
And like you could just take your drink to the next bar and kind of just chill. And then it's like 30-ish minutes before the game, there was like the cavalry just making their way up to the arena. And I'm like, this is fucking sweet.
It's if you like crowds, this is the place for you.
Well, this is also 2003, so I was 23, and I was like trying to get drunk and laid, so I was loving it,
This is the place for you.
Yeah, not anymore. Now I'm 41, and I'm like, fuck all that shit. Give me a plot of land with something to like raise some chickens and some tomatoes.
I'll be 49 this year, and when somebody goes, "Hey, let's meet me downtown," I'm like, oh,
fuck that. Yeah, fuck that. That's not happening. All right, Brett.
Thank you so much for having me. That's one of my dogs over there whining. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. This is great.
Dude, this is so much fun. And I'll promote the shit out of you here, and hopefully we can get Andy a little bit more money in his pocket and less things to worry about.
Sounds good. I'll be retweeting it and all that good stuff too.
I'll hammer out this as soon as I get off with you. Okay.
Sounds good. Take your time.